Hi. So this video is to help you with the lab on epidemiology, where you're looking at the spread of a virus. Um, I have a slightly different example here, but the same mathematical model applies, what's called the logistic growth curve. So I'm going to approach it from a slightly different way. In the lab, the commands are prescribed for you pretty close, so you have to add something, but um, the coding that I'm going to do here is going to be a little bit different. I'm using just some basic R techniques. So anyway, here's the data set. Here's where I got it. This is world population as it has increased over the years. And then this reference is the source for the theoretical mathematical model that I'm going to show you for how to find the logistic growth curve, this sort of an S curve. So I wish you could, I wish this could be 2 hours and I could show you the whole process that I went through. You have to be a little careful in this modeling. You have to include data that is not only data that's not too far from the inflection point. So you can see that the population was growing faster and faster, and somewhere around this 1964, that's the inflection point. It's going up, it's still, but now it starts to go up at a slower rate. Now it's only going up at 2%. So um, when I first did this, I used all the data back to, you know, ancient times, and I got a very inaccurate model. So I read up on it and I found that you have to include not too much data that's before the inflection point. So I'm going to use the data from 1951 on up. Interestingly, this is the model is based on a differential equation, which is some a relationship about the rate of change of the population. Well, the rate of change is just the difference from one year to the next. Think of it as a derivative, right? So I know the derivative just by finding the rate of change on a yearly basis. If these were not 1 year periods, I would have to do a difference quotient where I do the difference of population divided by the difference in the years. So now onto the theoretical model. So logistic growth model looks like this. The rate of change in population is proportional to the size of the population. That makes sense. That's exponential growth. However, there's another term here which is uh, dampening the growth of population based on something called the carrying capacity, right? So if you have rabbit population, that can grow really fast exponentially. But if you have, say, bacteria in a petri dish, that's limited by the size of the dish. And so world population, we live in a petri dish, right, called the Earth. So if you think about it as P approaches the carrying capacity, this becomes 0 and the growth stops. So it levels off. So as I've been describing, it's an S curve. It looks exponential in the beginning. You hit an inflection point, which I told you about 1964, and then it levels off, approaching K as time goes on. All right, so this is the equation. Now, to get at the parameters, clever little trick. If I divide both sides by P, this is sort of a percentage change, the amount of change related to the population, and this side is linear. So what I can do then is compute this, compute that, and do a linear regression. And from the regression coefficients, the slope and the intercept will be R, which is going to turn into the exponent down here in the solution. And K is our carrying capacity, and that's related to the slope. The slope is minus RK, but if I know R and I know the slope, I can find K. So then, uh, maybe ask your instructor to show you the solution to this differential equation, right? To solve a differential equation, you integrate. Here you can separate the variables, integrate, and you use a technique called partial fractions to come up with a solution. P0 is the initial value of the population. All right, so now I'm going to do this in R. Here it goes. So first thing I'm going to do is load the data into a variable and make it a data frame. So I made sure my directory was set correctly. Load that in. Okay, so now uh, let's do the derivative. Okay, so for the derivative, I need a library package called data pliers. Or okay, so that I can do this little trick to find the derivative. So I'm going to define a variable called derivative, and I'm going to make that a part of my data frame. And so what I want is current population minus the prior years. So the first year is going to be a problem because there's no prior year. So that'll just be an NA in the data frame, but that won't really affect anything. There, I have a derivative. Okay, so then I need so that's a derivative. If you think about it, it's the average rate of change during the year, and I think it's probably worthwhile to say that's the rate of change at the middle of the year. So I'm going to say new year. In this variable, put it in my data frame. And I'll do the same thing with the populations, because I want the population at the halfway point of the year. So I'll call it new pop, the average of population of one year and the population of the next. So everything, because I'm using the slope of the tangent of the line between the points at the end of the year. I want the mid-year value for the population and the time. Good. Okay, so now I can do the derivative divided by the population. So I'll call it rate of population growth, rate pop. Oops. That my data frame. And that's just the derivative. So it's really the percentage change in the population divided by the new pop. So that's going to be my y variable for the regression. And my x variable is going to be the population. So now I'm ready. Okay, so the point of this is to find R and K. I'll call this R and K. So what I want to do is to take out the coefficients of the regression equation of the rate as my y variable. So it's dependent on take a look at that. There it is. The intercept. The intercept is R. Good. So let me just put that into R. And you access that just by using its index. It's the first of those. And K, the slope is minus R over K. Slope is minus R over K. So solve that. K is minus R over F. Okay, so K is minus R divided by the slope of that regression equation, which we find using its index 2. Okay. So this is probably the highlight here. There's K. What K tells us is the maximum number of people that can fit on the Earth. 13 billion, approximately. So we're at about 8 billion now. We got a ways to go. We're okay. Reassuring, according to this model. So I was playing around with this and really interesting. I adjusted my model because things were looking really bad, and so anyway, I adjusted it, and then this came out, and I looked around to see what other folks had for values, and I found back in 1679, Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the inventor of the microscope, predicted 13.4 billion for this. So you'll see all kinds of estimates out there, but mine sort of matches this really old one by this really smart guy. I thought that was interesting. Okay, so now I need, I'm gonna use what I have up there as number 4 right here. That's the function that we're gonna use now to model the world population. And first thing I wanna do is, PO and TO, uh, those should be in the second position of so let's take a look at that world pop. Oops. I think what happens if I do 1, I get an NA. Yeah. So I actually want 2. 2 will be the first year. I'm gonna call that, TO. And then I have to do the initial population, and we'll do the same thing. For that, we'll do PO is the second entry there, right? Offset by 1 because I used that lag. Okay, so now I'm going to define my function. I'm going to call it logis growth. And it's going to take a parameter, which will be the time actually. And all it needs to do for me is compute this. Oh, I deleted it. Oh, man. So it does K times PO divide by PO plus K minus PO times exponential minus R times, and then I need to offset the time by the starting point, which I think is 1951.5. So subtract, and I think that's it. See if it likes it. It does. Okay, here we go. Plot logistic growth. World New Year. Oh, silly. Okay, I fixed that. And now look at this. I'll plot along with that my points. And the points would be world pop Oops. And the pop, depending on world pop year. I went wrong there. I don't see any points. Okay, wait a second. I messed up the plot. Okay, so let's go back to the plot. Yeah, so I just put the y. I needed the x and the y. But use that as the x. Oh, that's beautiful. So I need world pop here as my x, and then the value of y, so xy. Okay, that's nice. Okay, and now points xy. And here. So the actual data values, whereas what you're seeing in red are the computed data values from the model. Right on top of it. I see lots of purple. The red and the blue got together. And just for fun, one more plot. Just plot. Oh, it's, plot now. For my x value years, and then use my model, which I know is kind of accurate now. There's that S curve, and you can see it does level off around 1200, and things really popped around 1900. It's really quite a good match for the world population. So that's my little story about logistic growth using R. Hope you enjoyed it. I know I did.